Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of this 80s Pro inspired thingy I'm doing. That is what it is. 80s Pro inspired. If you didn't know, you probably do know. That's probably why you're here. Most likely. I added some cool new things, like a layer that shows you, where the ethnicities and all that stuff comes from, as well as another layer for provinces, because those are always helpful. And then we do have another layer and then we also have capitals and cities. And there's another layer we'll be doing today, but that's later on. So let's go ahead and get started. So for the base stuff, we're gonna go ahead and have these two nations making up a sort of charter that they're going to follow and divide up the rest of Korea, because it's already explored. And that ends up looking something like this. Now, Korea is filled up, and that makes the map look a little more filled in, which is always a nice addition. Another thing that is going to be happening is in this area. Now, you see this area has quite a few countries. Quite a few. To count, there is one here, 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 and one here. So in total there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 countries. So I believe the balance of power, the whole thing, would probably be this one as the strongest one, and this one as the second strongest one. But besides that, these ones are all weak. But the weakest of these ones is probably this one. This one is probably the strongest of these ones because of its, coast. Its coast. It has a lot of coast. And this one's probably the weakest because it does not have a coast. So, what we have happening here is a bit of expansion, you could say. This country right here, no one really likes it. No one likes it. It's blocking this nation from getting closer to the coast, and it's blocking this nation from going up and going to places it wants to, and it's completely surrounding the green country. It has no land. It has no way to gain land if this thing is still around. So these three countries are going to be making a pact to declare war on this nation. So that's exactly what happens. Very quickly, we see a bunch of troops from this light blue Korean country go into this area and go near this major city, which they easily take. Because remember, very strong nation. Now, over here, this nation does a bit of pushing into the brownish goldish nation, which goes pretty well. This nation just really does not like these ones. So it's fully just trying its best to fight these nations, even though it's kind of weird how fighting works because of how early on this is. I'll just reiterate here, they're just fighting with swords, shields, and bows, and the concept of country isn't really established. We're just doing this for the sake of the scenario, but they will continue to make some land gains up here. However, this green team is going to focus on the southern provinces, completely cutting this nation off from the coast and getting dangerously close to its capital city, which looks about this. It's about here, if you want a better representation of that, which also causes this nation to be continually kicked out of its provinces, because this nation is not like them. But both the green and the light blue forces are moving straight up into this country, and they take the capital city, which, that doesn't do wonders. This green takes this province, and this one takes this province, as well as just liberating the rest of this country. And this is what it ends up looking like about. Now, in this treaty, there will be full annexation for this country, sadly, because, there wasn't many options. So, I'm sorry if you like the country, but yes. Now, after this treaty, the world looks something like this, with this country getting completely obliterated off the map, and the light blue country profiting the most off of this. Now, this has completely sealed off this green country's modes to expand anymore, but they're pretty happy because they have some major cities along the coast, and they are doing pretty good with themselves. Now, time for some more expansion. This purple team, the one that started it all, continues its track down and through the coast. It also moves more in and starts going deeper into some territories that were discovered. However, in this country, another one decides it's a very good time to break away. This country is based off of this major city over here. And this country will continue to expand, and let's see where that ends up. That ends up with this nation kind of looking like this. Now, you might notice that some land transfers were happening here, where, they did have some land for a second there, but now they have lost that land. And that is because these two governments are pretty friendly with each other. So they decided to, make a bit of amends, you could say. Sadly for, this nation, things just continue to get worse. Seeing a moment of weakness, this nation, which has previously just broken off of this nation, decides it's time to make a ground invasion and naval invasion of this country. Now, immediately what they do, they focus a bit here, but this nation is not very strong in comparison to Sakhalin, which is what I'll be calling them. So they make some gains, but the majority of their gains are in a different place. They set off on their way, and they make it over here to Japan, where they stage a successful naval invasion and take over this city. Now, with this city lost, this nation is now under threat of losing its northern Japanese island. And trust me, they do not want that. But Sakhalin does push this light purple team back a bit, taking a major city that was previously theirs. But after this, Sakhalin country does not really want any more war and decides for a white peace option, except for the transfer of this area of Japan. As you can see, Sakhalin is very far from this area, and back then they wouldn't have been able to very good administer it, so it's hard to administer it anyways. But you can see this country's capital is way closer to over here, so it would be a lot easier to administrate. And in order to gather goodwill with this country, because they do not want to fight them, they decide to cede this area to them in a peace treaty that looks something like this. Now, with all of these borders disputes just, pretty fixed, we're going to focus a little bit more on exploration. So this nation, very close and very invested in Japan, decides to invest more into looking at the Japanese islands until they have fully discovered all of Japan, as well as this Lime nation over here deciding it's time to explore a bit more into this and exploring more and more of Asia. Now, these nations don't really do much more except for just a little bit of more charting and all of that stuff. Now, this nation over here, though, makes some pretty big progress into exploration and charting of maps. And this is about where the exploration for right now ends, except for maybe just a little bit more of it. Now, what's going to happen next is a mass expansion of several countries, as well as a few more things. Now, this nation over here is pretty much crumbling. It used to be very, very good and all that stuff, but it's now crumbling. It's very non-profitable for exist. So what happens is that yet even more people decide to leave this country and start a new one. What ends up forming is a new nation on the coast that slowly slithers its way down the coast, cutting off this mint Chinese country from the coast, which then envelops this entire area very quickly. My coloring! Which leads to borders that look like about this. And now, because of this nation is a little like, why did that happen? So they discuss another plan. Rather than just, invading this nation, they decide these two nations decide that it's time to get rid of this scourge from the map. So that is exactly what they do. They move their troops into several major cities of this area and completely decimate it, while they're taking so many cities. Now, this nation is in a lot of despair right now. So do you know what they decided to do? join up with this magenta team. Yeah, magenta team. Now, after this magenta team is very, very not happy with everything that is happening. And after this, most of the land that this nation would have wanted, they most likely have it now, except for some areas up here. So what ends up happening is this magenta country makes a deal with this upper Chinese country to cede over some territories to them. That ends up looking something like this. Now, this nation never exited war with this other nation. And they are still fighting. And you would think immediately, oh, this nation is stronger. But that is actually not the case. This nation's military is surprisingly good for their size, and they bash into an unprepared nation as they continue to decimate and ravage through areas. Their tactics are more modern, I say in heavy air quotes, than the other tactics that were employed by this nation. This magenta nation serves as a catalyst for a very, very new stage in everything that's going on with a bunch of things, with military advancements. Because remember, this is still very, very early on. And they continue their way through this nation. A group of rebels from this nation say, oh no, we're about to get murdered. And most of these people come from this about area. So what they do is they migrate down here. And they just chill. They start taking a bit of territory. And they, for now, just exist. This nation now decides, well, if I can't beat this country, I should join them. So they make a non-aggression agreement, and they decide that at the end of this, they will split up southern China amongst themselves. And that's exactly what they do. This magenta country continues to ravage through this country and do even more. Now, even though these two nations were very, very close, this nation still decides to backstab this nation for some territories that they wanted to control out here. They even take this major city. With this, they also take this province just to weaken them even more, and they let this magenta country continue their campaign through this country, eventually reaching the area around the capital and taking it. This nation has now been absolutely slaughtered, and they will surrender. The peace treaty ends up looking something like this, with a lot of the territory of this country going over to the magenta country, including this important major city that they owned, as well as many other major cities being on the brink of capture. While this is happening, this southern Korean country decides it's a great idea to use this as an opportunity to take Taiwan, which a bunch of other countries did, which a bunch of these Chinese countries did have a claim on. However, they used this chaos to take Taiwan, as well as discovering and taking over these islands. That's not where all of their naval escapades end, though, as they take southern China. Southern Japan. Why can't I talk today? Now, a lot of the borders and stuff in this area has been sorted. However, this Chinese country still wants to do more expanding. So they continue to make their way out and explore a lot of new territory. They send several people out to go on explorations through here until eventually they get too far away and they die. But all this is discovered, so that's good, right? A massive spearhead is made through here, trying to discover as much of the world as they can. And they will lay claim to some of this territory that they have discovered, which ends up looking something like this. Now, this country over here decides, I want to have some land too. So they see this opportunity to take it. What ends up happening is they end up expanding, this way. And now we see another thing happen. Another completely unrelated group pops up in the middle here. This is a very traditional group who in the past has always been in these lands, but who hasn't really functioned enough as a government, wasn't centralized enough for me to, say that it was a actual country in a way, even though that's in loose terms. But after some revolutions and a bunch of things happening, a traditional monarch has taken control. I wouldn't even say monarch, I just say chief, has taken control of most of this territory. And now they are in an area to expand quite a bit. But everyone's like, hold on, I want to expand in that land too. So all of these nations decide, okay, it's time to expand a little bit. So this is going to be a charter or whatever, a peace treaty that divides up all of this land between, all of these people, all of these people, all of these people, all of that. So let's see what happens. And I know what you might be thinking. Wow, this maroon country is large. You might also be thinking, wow, this is doubled in size. And you might be thinking, these two nations got absolutely nothing. Well, they're pretty content with a bunch of the areas they got, especially since this nation is going to continue its escapades in Japan, and it's going to end up taking the rest of this island. Color and all that. And there you are. See, look. They are pretty happy with that, as well as this Korean country getting quite a bit more land. But back to this being massive. Yeah, remember how I said this was a pretty loose confederation at the end of the day? Yeah. Half of this nation just breaks away, and there is really nothing that you can do about that. Now, that nation might look impressive on the map, but trust me, these two nations are not very strong. But let's just go ahead and continue with our good old friends up here. Now, I know even more boring charters. When are we going to get to the war? Trust me. We'll get there. Just not yet. We gotta set the stage first, if you will. But yes, another boring charter where they just inevitably carve up land. But before that, another totally unique based on ethnicity comes and nationality, comes out of this area, which means that now this country can't just have all of this. Yay for them, I guess. So now let's do this charter. My goodness, this entire land is filled in. And why, yes it is. This nation in particular, this blue one, got very powerful from this. And this nation got basically nothing. So yeah, they're not very happy. This nation got quite a bit. This nation got quite a bit. This nation got quite a bit. And this nation got quite a bit. But that's expected. And before, I leave off on this video, I would like to do one more event to set up another thing. The addition of an alliance. Now, I will be using shapes because, it is bird as that, but don't get mad at me. So these two nations right here make an alliance. And you want to know why? That's because these two nations do not like each other at all. They've been recently clashing in each other's territorial waters, if they even have those at this stage, and they are just not happy with each other's existence. So what do? Make their position a little bit better. But, oh wait. Another alliance is formed with this nation down here, which wants to reclaim this area over here. That's their main goal. Right now, they had to, sacrifice this land so that they could take the land over here, which they wanted. But also they ally with Korea, which right now wants this country to not exist and this country to be theirs, which this country does not want that. So that's where we're going to end the video today, and I'm going to go draw, a bunch of provinces and a bunch of all that stuff. But thank you for watching, and have a wonderful, blessed day.